My name is Her Majesty Queen Mother Dowoti Désir Huna II. As a Mambo Asobwe, which is a high priest in Haitian Vodou, I am a healer.
The most common description you get, these general descriptions of Vodou. Vodou is are healing practices. And so the Mambo, the Hugon, they are medical doctors, spiritual doctors, therapists, intermediary with the spirits, all of those things. And so they really do play that role, that functional role. Vodou is from the Fon word meaning spirit. There are spirits, that those who have come before us, generally benevolent, but there are of course other kinds of spirits, whether it may be associated more with ancestors, that are born under slavery or under colonialism, and they are much fiercer, and they're fighters.
We celebrate them too. We give thanks to them because what they give our lives for us.
We're honoring them, and that we haven't forgotten them. It's a mutual relationship. They need us, and that's why we feed them in different ways, or give them offerings, and animal sacrifice is part of that. Vodou makes its way, beginning really in the 18th century with slaves that are generally being brought from West Africa.
We arrived, many of us, most of us forcibly arrived in the Americas. And enslavement meant not only our physical bondage, but it meant taking away all kinds of elements of our space. It wasn't just our physical space, it was our emotional spaces, our linguistic spaces, our cultural spaces, our spiritual spaces became constrained and confined, and the intent was to eliminate.
Already in West Africa, things are already becoming so mixed. Spirits and gods and practices that were specific to very particular locations are now coming together and being integrating, and even in that sense, creolized. Even before making their way, through the Middle Passage and being transplanted in American locations. Within the context of colonialism and the plantation, the openness and absorption of other elements. It was a way to preserve and create community, to preserve identity, to get through life.
The Vodou is open, it's receptive, it's trying to find balance and harmony at all times with the other beings, with the other entities that exist in the universe, with other ways of thinking. Then it becomes a very powerful and beautiful legacy.
This is very important for you to respect people, respect the nature, the water, the trees, even the animals. That's Vodou. That's the part of me.
Vodou is so complicated, but in ways that really are confusing to for many of us, our familiar ideas of religion. The idea that, well, you can only belong to just one, and it's some kind of set system, and here we're dealing with a multiplicity. So I think that feeds into not just the misconception, but that's going to feed into certain stereotypes tied to race.
Everything that we did was primitive. It was demonic. It was uninformed. You make people feel culturally impotent and irrelevant and ashamed. When people are made to feel like you don't matter, who needs you, who cares about you, it's psychologically devastating.
See in New York, of course, a lot of this understanding within the communities, that spaces are different, the traditional structure of ceremonies has to change. Obviously, for practical purposes, a lot of communities, they don't publicize what they do. Things are taking place in basements, so they can't be seen, but that's also just the spaces that might be available. And things are often taking place at night. A lot of ceremonies might take place at night. Again, so they're not as visible, but all the practical purposes, that's when people are available. They've been working all day.
When you do the Vodou ceremony, for example, you invite people to sing with you, to dance with you, eat with you, love together, like we share. That's how they do.
When you don't understand our sciences, then you think they're doing magic, that there are different ways of existing in the world. What is so horrible about what we know, what we do, what we practice, that you have to stamp us out? Oh, do you sacrifice chickens? Yes, we do. And guess what? So do you every time you go to the supermarket and you eat one, or you go to KFC and you order one. Yeah, you too. There's also the nature of life. You can't have everything. There are things that you have to give up. As a drummer, ideally, as a child, they plant a tree at some point, and that tree, you have to take care of that tree. You grow up, the tree is growing up. You water that tree, you talk to that tree, you feed that tree, you sit under the tree, it gives you shade. You eat the fruit of that tree. That's the tree, at one point, you know you have to take it down to give spirit voice and to help it heal. Europeans have not understood that they think there's something unholy going on when they see food and libations and other offerings made to a tree. They don't understand that we think that the tree is sacred because you don't think the tree is sacred. You have no value for that, but we do.